Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for a link to my Amazon store where I've compiled some of the very best items available, including some of my own personal recommendations. Thanks! What's going on, YouTube Metal Complex here, and today I've got a really awesome knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the sadly discontinued and legendary Spyderco Slysz Bowie, or Bowie, however you want to say that. I don't really care, honestly. This knife was sent to me by @EricBLike on Instagram, a name you guys should be semi-familiar with on this channel. Please give him a follow. It's because of people like him that I'm able to bring you guys daily knife content, and specifically this type of content. This is a rare knife, and it is a very sought-after knife. It's a knife that's being talked about, continuously. It's been being talked about for a long time, and there's no way that I'd be able to get my hands on this knife without him. So yeah, give him a follow. It's also because of my generous patrons. Thank you so much, everybody who's supporting me. If you'd like to get your hands on those stickers and at the same time gain access to some exclusive content, there is a link down in the description. The support would absolutely mean the world to me. Let's get a measurement of this guy. Overall length coming in at, it's like 7.8 inches overall. The blade length is exactly 3.5 inches by my measurement. And then your cutting edge is something like 3.3 maybe. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1. Rat 1 is coming in at 8.6 inches overall. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? It's a good size comparison, I think. Spyderco PM2 coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Another great size comparison. Ritter Hogue coming in at 8 to 8.1 inches overall. And then last but not least, the Spyderco Para 3. Para 3 is coming in at 7.25 inches overall. How's the action on this guy? This knife is running on phosphor bronze washers. That godforsaken flashlight, there it is. I don't know what my deal is with that stupid thing. Phosphor bronze washers on this guy. And guys, boy, the action is smooth on this thing. Let me say this real quick. This knife has always been an item of great mystery, intrigue, confusion, whatever. To me, it's almost been frustrating. I, like many of you, very much enjoy Nick Shabazz's channel, and if you guys don't know or can't tell, he was an enormous influencer on me starting this channel, and I spent so much time watching his reviews alongside other people's reviews and being in and out of the forums, Absolutely love Nick Shabazz. This guy loves this Slysz Bowie, and it's been, I think the Bowie's been a channel, I know I'm going back and forth, Bowie, whatever. It's been an icon on his channel for a long time, and he's always put it on such a high pedestal, and he's talked about it in detail, and I've listened to what he said about it, and he said, in some ways it could be reduced to simple titanium and CTS XHP, it's not that different in terms of, the build type to a lot of different knives. There are tons of frame locks out there, that are titanium and CTS XHP or S35EN, M390. And, and then he said in a lot of ways it's just this amazing thing. And I listened to his words, and I took everything in, and I just could not shake this idea that, well, no, I don't understand it. I mean, yeah, I'm sure it's a good knife, but what I don't understand what's, and this knife drives a point home that I've been making for a long time. Sometimes you just can't understand what's so special about something until you handle it. And if you watched me unbox this knife, you can see the moment where it clicked for me, pun intended. It was when I deployed it. It just kind of did all at once. And the more that I sat around and played with it, the more I understood. So, spoiler alert, this is going to be a positive review, but I have a lot of information I think you guys might find interesting. So definitely stick around. But yeah, the action is just wonderful. This is a glassy, smooth, snappy deployment. It is very easy to engage and manipulate. It's extremely friendly on engagement, on disengagement, on lockout. It doesn't matter how you deploy it. It is very easy, and it is straightforward. It is meant to deploy. It is meant to deploy efficiently. It's meant to lock out hard. This is a tool designed by, I think, if I'm incorrect, just correct me, Martin Slysz, I think. Martin Slysz, however you want to say that. It looks like Slyzy. That's how I want to say it. I guess it's Slysz. But yeah, the action is wonderful. For phosphor bronze, this is certainly one of the best actions that I've ever felt on phosphor bronze. even considering knives that cost substantially more money. I am very, very impressed with the action of this guy, and that makes me happy, you know, to add some, you know, clarification to that. Personal clarification, I guess. Carry profile. Let's go. Actually, you know, let's do the hardware check. Get out my handy-dandy WIA magnetic driver and WIA bit selector, 2 items that are extremely inexpensive and extremely recommendable. You can find them down in the Amazon store that I referenced at the beginning of every video. Just pull open the store, look for knife maintenance, and you should be able to find them. I'm going to guess, just looking at it, that the pivot is a T8. I'm going to be really careful with this because, again, it's not like you can just go get another one for a fair price right now. We're going to talk about that. T8 on the pivot, absolutely. And then the other side is going to be the same. And then your body screws are likely and unfortunately T6, which is something that I see on the Spyderco Taichung Taiwan manufactured, or the Taichung Taiwan manufactured Spydercos. Yeah, that's T6. Now it's important to point out that the heads for what's holding in the wire clip are also T8. T6 is never a deal breaker. It's just a mild frustration because the bits are, even if you're using WIA bits, the heads are small on the fasteners, and the bits are small, and the teeth are small, so they're easier to strip out than T8. Okay, you can still get into the knife. You know, it's like I always say, just use caution. Carry profile. So this is a thin knife for being a full titanium constructed knife. It's ever so slightly thinner than a Spyderco Para 3 and PM2. And in terms of height, that doesn't have the big hump. They made a nice cutout on the scale to engage that hole rather than raising the hole up really high. Now you lose the little ramp back there that's meant to, you know, while you're using the knife, you can rest your thumb nicely here, and it allows you to kind of, I guess, engage that with more fortification to add complexity where it's not needed. Yeah, it's not as long as the PM2. It's not as tall as the Para 3. 2 knives that have awkward carry profiles that nobody ever complains about. So yeah, in terms of carry profile that way, it's thin and it's not super tall. It is still a big knife. You know, rest assured, it's still a big knife. It's just not nearly as cumbersome as other knives that might be in direct competition because of the dimensions. Let's go ahead and weigh it. This knife is using a relatively thin, actually, I think it's a very thin blade stock. Let me go ahead and get the calipers here, and we will carefully, this is why I have tape. I know you guys don't like that I have tape on here. I don't care. It's to protect some of the knives that I can't easily replace. It can't be 140 thousandths. No way. I think it's more like 135. Coming in at 137 thousandths there. Not a thick blade stock, not the thinnest blade stock, unless my calipers are just incorrect. It might actually be more like 130 thousandths, but just to give you guys a measurement there. It's a large knife. There's no internal milling to my knowledge. And then we've got a G10 backspacer. So the weight on this guy comes in at a completely reasonable 4.27 ounces. It's certainly going to be a little too heavy for a lot of people. If you're somebody who wears regular pants, you know, jeans, regular khakis, things like that, you're going to be just fine. If you like to wear thin pant material or athletic shorts, this probably isn't going to be something that you enjoy. But considering what it is and how big it is, I have no issue with that weight whatsoever. Carry profile very much matters to me more than weight, so I'm happy with that. Did we cover everything? I think we did. Let's talk about the anatomy here. So we have contoured, tumbled titanium scales. They are very simple, but they are extremely well done. This knife is very obviously Taichung Taiwan to me. And I've handled a lot of the Taichung Taiwans and Spydercos. The Spidey Chef, I believe, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I believe is Taichung Taiwan. The Drunken, right? The Paisan. The Drunken I thought was, you know, made, you know, well. I just wasn't quite as impressed with it. The Spidey Chef, I think, is very similar in overall construction and materials, extremely similar. And I can't tell you exactly why I find that knife so unimpressive or disappointing, as I have pointed out in another video, and this one to be so much more impressive. Perhaps I'm biased because of the appearance, perhaps the you know, the interest in this knife in the knife community and the fact that it's way up on a pedestal has created this subconscious bias, you know, like I've got a high expectation and maybe subconsciously I want it to be met. So maybe I consider this knife better for that reason. This knife appeals to me more in hand in terms of deployment and disengagement and in terms of aesthetics. Truth be told, the build quality between the two feels similar. The Spidey Chef to me feels a little more clunky. This feels a little bit more elegant. So that's the best way that I can put it. That's the most honest way that I can put it for you guys. While attempting to make, bring to light, the words that I use, or the choices I made in the words that I use between these two knives. But yeah, it's very, very simple, but it's very well done. All the corners you can see, this is nice up close. The slight reflectivity there, showing the, how much care and attention went into knocking down all these corners. And it's just nice. The contouring on the scales, the slight contouring is something I very much enjoy. I will always take contoured titanium or contoured anything over a flat surface. I just will. There's no texturing on it. Man, I would have loved a diamond patterned texture. Geez, what is wrong with me today? I would have loved a diamond pattern texture on the front of this. Reading too much Dr. Seuss to my kids. I would have enjoyed that, but it's okay that it doesn't have it. The fasteners are super simple. There's nothing special going on here, but it's just straightforward. Ergonomically, yeah, you can lock into this knife very, very easily. There are no hot spots, in my opinion. This is very comfortable to hold. It's organic to engage. The jimping is in the right place. As soon as I pick this up, I feel like I want to use it. I feel like I'm ready to go. Anything that would hold me back, yeah, because it's it's an expensive knife to begin with, even when it was available, and now it's not available, so you can't just go pick one up. And even if you can find one, they're really, really expensive. That would be the only thing that would hold me back. Trying to shut that out of my mind, though, and just, imagine this is a simple, just a cutting tool that I'm reaching for to do something. Yeah, boy, yeah, it does feel good. This is a nice, this is more, I'm not the biggest fan of a Bowie blade shape, but this is one that I really like. It's definitely a Bowie, but it's more drop pointy than the clip point Bowies that I see on, like, your Buck 110 or like the Hinderer Bowie. I actually like this a lot better. I also very much enjoyed that it is fully flat ground. And all the corners and everything are knocked down. To my surprise, this area up here is crowned. I honestly did not know that. We have this flat area here, and then it's crowned. And we have Spyderco's Taichung Taiwan legendary, slightly reflective tumbled finish. This is my favorite tumbled finish of any knife that I've ever handled. It's nice. I actually like it more than the tumbling on the Sabenza. I definitely like it more than the Hinderer tumbling. The Hinderer tumbling is nice. It's just more scratchy. This is more of a fine grain tumbling, and it just looks nice. It might show scratches more readily than a tumbling that's a little more scratchy, but I just don't care. I like it. The best thing about the blade is the cutting edge, as it should be. It gets very thin down here, and there's a lot of belly, and it's ready to go to work. It's fully usable. Every last inch of that blade is performance-oriented, backed up by there being nothing in the cutting path and it being fully flat ground. The fact that it's got a smooth tumbled finish on it means that it's going to pass through material with no drag whatsoever. It's funny to point that out because it's like, well, any sharp knife, or relatively sharp knife can be basically pressed through material like cardboard and you're going to get the job done. But man, when you have a blade that's really meant to do that, and if you're going to do something for a long period of time, if I was going to break down cardboard for 30 minutes, this is the type of blade that I really would enjoy. The first 5 minutes of that, yeah, you're just going to be cutting, but after 10, 15 minutes, a blade like this really makes all the difference in the world, and even simple cutting tasks. This is the type of blade that's going to feel good and feel easy and convenient, when you're using it. I am very, very happy with the blade. On the front, it says Spyderco CTS XHP, and on the back, it says Taichung Taiwan. And then we've got the maker's logo there. CTS XHP is absolutely one of my favorite steels. Stainless steel, excellent edge retention. If I understand correctly, if we're using, comparing S35VN, M390, and CTS XHP, just to give a point of reference, XHP is going to be more edge retentive in general, assuming everything is heat treated properly, than S35VN, less edge retentive than M390. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe CTS XHP is a little less tough than S35VN and a little tougher than M390. For the vast majority of us, like most of these steels, you probably won't notice the difference unless you are using this thing every single day for long periods of time and resharpening it all the time. I don't think CTS XHP is as much of a nightmare to sharpen as M390. I don't know. I'm just referencing what I've read. I have a little bit of experience using CTSX HP, but I do very much like the idea of the composition, and the experience that I have with it is all positive. So that's where that comes from. I think that's about it for the blade. The thumb hole is very easy to engage. You are limited to basically 2 types of deployment. You can do the simple thumb flick, or you can just wheel it out. I honestly kind of like to just wheel it out. But what I like about the noise this makes, and maybe this is one of the things that I really like between this and the Spydie Chef, is that click. The feeling of the breaking of the detent, the deployment being smooth, and the knife snapping and clicking into place is very, very satisfying. This has the clicky detent and the clicky feeling that was lacking in my experience with the Spydie Chef and the Python. If the Python felt more like this, boy, I would have liked that. I would have liked that a lot more. This has a perfectly tuned detent, or at least this one does. This is the only one I've ever handled, and it sounds good and it feels good to deploy. You know, if you want to fire it out, you're going to be happy. If you want to just wheel it out, you're going to be happy. I have sat and played with this thing for a long time, and I just love how the action feels. Absolutely. This is a right-handed frame lock, but we do have a position on the left side for people who are left-handed. Now, the funny thing is there's no room to engage it back here to do the traditional Spydie flick that I love so much. And actually, that's how I prefer to deploy my Spydercos. There's not enough room to do that with the right hand. You might be able to kind of force it, but it's just going to be inconvenient, right? Now, if you're left-handed, you can kind of pinch open it, right? But if you're left-handed, you actually can enjoy that Spydie flick. Keep in mind, I'm right-handed, people, but I'm going to do this for you here real quick. A left-handed Spydie flick is possible on this knife, and then you can carry it left-handed. So if you're left-handed and you like doing the Spydie flick, then you're really going to enjoy this. Absolutely. Right-handed people, you're just going to have to open it this way. I don't necessarily consider that a flaw because it has no bearing on its utilitarian, all the utilitarian benefits, right? This is a wire clip. I don't traditionally enjoy the look of the wire clip by itself, but as I've found, it really depends heavily on what the design is. The clip is just incredibly basic, and it looks like a paper clip, right? So the only designs that I really like it on are designs that are incredibly simple in nature and aesthetically, right? And this is that. So, I mean, would I have preferred a different clip? Maybe, but I don't mind the clip at all. And the best thing about the wire clip is it's designed to be functional and minimalist, and that's what it's achieving here, right? It carries deep, and it carries securely, and it's got plenty of retention. It's probably going to catch every now and then on something, given that it's got a little bit of a bill, but it's not crazy, and it's certainly going to, be easy to get in and out of the pocket no matter what type of pants you're wearing, It's also going to be secure, given the design, how it sinks all the way into the titanium and is held in by that large fastener, so that's great. Backspacer is G10, and it's got a little bit of jimping on there. It's very simple. It functions, and that's great. I don't have any issues with that. This knife is not new. It didn't like pop up and then disappear. It's been around for a long time, since before the new thing with adding steel lock bar inserts to every single titanium frame lock. It kind of was came to light before that was occurring with everything. So this has no steel lock bar insert, and it also has no over travel stop. I don't really care that it doesn't have an insert. This is one model that I'm really hoping gets brought back in a newer form. Whether or not they add an insert, I truthfully don't care. This is a carbonized titanium lock face, and it locks up absolutely solid. A lot of people, like I've said many times over, will actually argue in favor of a titanium lock bar that has no insert, because that carbonized lock face will work harden and is, by a lot of people will tell you is actually more dependable or less slippery than a steel lock bar. It all depends on the geometry and whether or not the knife was made correctly. Most high-end knives with steel lock bar inserts, their geometry is correct, and you don't have to worry about that. But that's why I say it really doesn't matter to me. What does matter to me is that there is no over travel stop. You do have to be careful. It's pretty uncommon to bend out a titanium frame lock, but it can happen. And if you do that, then it's not going to lock up correctly, or it's not going to lock up securely, and it's going to have to be sent back and corrected. I don't know if there are rumors of this knife coming back. It's just me. Maybe it's just me being hopeful and wishful. But if one did come back, I would very much like there to be an over travel stop of some sort. The pocket clip, doesn't really add any security there. You know, it's not really laying on, like sometimes they lay the pocket clip halfway on the frame and halfway on the lock bar, and it helps to add a little bit of tension pushing it back. But in this case, you just have to be cognizant of it, and it's pretty unlikely that's going to happen, but it can, you know. So if you're going to pick this up and use it, you know, bear that in mind. The rest of the knife on this side is much the same as the front. It's just got the lock side. This is locking up at, it looks like something like 80%. Every picture that I've seen of a Slysz Bowie is the same. This is also centered. And it locks up absolutely securely. There's no blade play up, down, left, or right, and there's no lock stick, which is great. I could care less if it's locking up late, early, as long as it's secure, right? We all like to see a lock bar that's not locking up so late because we don't like to think that the lock bar is going to wear over all the way to the other side and cause lock rock, but I don't know that I've ever heard of that happening. I think most lock bars wear in at a certain point, and then it takes a lot more to get them to move just a little bit after a certain amount of time. I think this one has been around enough and has been, you know, played with enough that the lock bar has settled into where it's going to be, and it's probably going to stay there unless somebody tries to do something stupid like press this all the way in to test it. Don't do that. So, what are the things that I can complain about on this knife? It's got T6 hardware. That's a mild little stupid thing that that frustrates me, but it's not that big of a deal. And it doesn't have an over travel stop. I don't know that there's really a whole lot else I can complain about here. Here's the main thing. Here's the main issue with this knife, all the drama surrounding it. It's not really, I don't want to create unnecessary drama. Let's not say that. This knife, when it originally came out, it was something like $300, or at least looking at Blade HQ, the last price, you know, that it was listed at, and then it says out of stock was $300. Perhaps it was a little less than that at one point. Do I think this is a $300 knife? Taiwan is known for high quality manufacturing, specifically Taichung Taiwan and Spyderco. You're going to get some, you know, some of the best, you know, super quality Spydercos from that plant, right? This is titanium CTSX HP. There's nothing ultra special going on here in terms of the construction, but do I think that this is worth $300 by today's standard? I don't know. You know, somewhere around there between $260 and $300. You know, I imagine some people will go, it doesn't have bearings, it doesn't have an insert. You know, there's nothing special in the titanium. It doesn't have an insert. So by today's standards, perhaps, you know, people would have an issue with that. I think it was less of an issue back then, right? If this, so it's really hard to say because this has been discontinued, right? And pricing was different back then, and it's out the window, right? You can't get it unless you want to go to the secondary market. And guess what's happening on the secondary market with this guy? You're gonna pay way more than $300 for this because this thing, for whatever reason, blew up because of the, you know, the universe does that sometimes, and people were like, oh, we want this now. And a lot of us want it, and it's not available. So people in the secondary market, they mark it way up. Is this a $400, $500, $600 knife? I've heard of this knife going, you know, for that much in some cases. No. Say the same thing Nick did. No, it's not. Is it a good knife? Oh man, is this a good knife? This is a wonderful knife. It's so simple. Oftentimes with simplicity, born out of simplicity, are the best tools. You know, at base, a folding knife needs to be able to comfortably carry in your pocket. You need to be able to pull it out of your pocket, conveniently deploy it, conveniently cut efficiently, and then you should be able to disengage the lock, put the blade away, and put it back in your pocket. There should be minimal hang up. And this does that beautifully. On top of that, we have a minimalist aesthetic that, for me, is very appealing. Very, very appealing. The lines flow. Everything looks good. There's nothing on this knife that doesn't need to be there. It's like, it needs a pivot. Here's a pivot. To make sure that it's got, you know, structural integrity, we'll use titanium. We will contour it. We'll make it an ergonomic shape. We'll use exactly the number of fasteners that are appropriate for keeping everything together and lightweight, but keeping it strong, right? We're going to make the blade a shape that is, you know, large enough and strong enough to emphasize some durability, but also thin enough to make sure that it's, you know, convenient for cutting. We're going to make sure that there's access to that thumb hole, right? And that none of the edges are pointing. I mean, everything that they did was for purpose. And so, yeah, this is an excellent tool. Maybe it is my internal bias or all the mystique surrounding this knife for so many years and never having handled it. And maybe it was up on a pedestal and I just wanted it to be there subconsciously and didn't realize it. And now that I'm handling it, you know, maybe that's why I'm saying this. I don't know. I think this is one of the best folding knives that I've ever handled. This absolutely would have made my top 15 greatest folding knives of all time, had it, you know, had I handled it before then. I'll tell you this much, guys. If the fasteners were T8, and it had an over travel stop, and if there was texturing on the titanium, at least on this side, oh my God, I don't know what I'd do. I'd be blown away. This is a wonderful knife, and I hate to say that in some ways, because it's like all I'm doing is just you know, justifying, you know, people like seeking this out and paying too much money for it, and I'll you know, people who own it and are considering, you know, selling it, or just, you know, it's all the more justification for them to mark it up, you know. But I can't lie, this is how I feel. You know, I don't make any, if somebody goes and buys this from the secondary market, I don't make any money from it. So I'm just telling you guys how I feel based on handling it. Wonderful knife. Absolutely. This was a lot of fun to experience. I'm torn, because it's like, do I put it on my most recommended knives playlist? I mean, technically, yeah, I do recommend it, but for a good price, but not, I can't recommend it for, you know, the money that you would have to pay for it. So, just rest assured, you know, if this were I guess if it was a $260 knife, you know, I probably would say, yeah, you know, definitely go for it. It's wonderful. But it's not. So this will be going on my favorite knives of all time playlist, but not my most recommended playlist. And I realize that there are knives on the recommended playlist that are no longer available, but that wasn't the case at the time of the review. So that can be confusing sometimes. I love this knife though. This was a long review. Holy cow. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have